Welcome back to the NWR Virtual Healthcare Conference. Next up, we're going to the world of cell therapy with Chimeric Therapeutics CEO and Managing Director, Jennifer Chow. Chimeric has a diversified portfolio that includes first-in-class autologous CAR T cell therapies and best-in-class allogeneic NK cell therapies. Chimeric's assets are being developed across multiple disease areas in oncology with 3 current clinical programs. Just a reminder, if anyone in the audience has any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type them in using the function on Zoom, and we will get to those at the end. But I'll now hand it over to Jen. Please go ahead.
Thanks so much, Matt, and thank you everybody for taking the time to let me update you or introduce you to Chimeric Therapeutics. So just highlighting our disclaimer. As Matt said, Chimeric Therapeutics is a clinical stage cell therapy company. For those of you that are not familiar with cell therapies, in their purest form, it's a blood transfusion. It's any type of therapy where we use a live or a living cell to actually impact disease. With the types of cell therapies that Chimeric develops, we actually take it a little bit further and we engineer the cells to be able to be more effective as fighters against cancer. And you can see highlighted here some of the success that we've had with CAR T cell therapy over the course of the last decade. Highlighted are some of the early patients that were treated with cell therapies and now 10 years later remain cured and free from their cancer. So that's really what Chimeric's mission is all about, is to bring those outcomes to more patients. Cell therapy landscape really positions Chimeric well for success in 2024. As I've already mentioned, CAR T cell therapies have actually now been demonstrated and proven to be curative therapies. They are commercial blockbusters around the world, generating nearly $3 billion of revenue in 2023. We've seen this first approval for a CAR T cell therapy or a cell therapy in solid tumor just this year. And over the course of the last 6 months, we've seen over $3 billion of M&A activity picking back up in the cell therapy space. We also have growth expectations in this particular area as we go forward. The landscape in cell therapy is expected to grow to over $42 billion by 2027, with 10 to 20 new approvals expected by 2025. So a lot of activity going on here. Chimeric is incredibly well positioned in the cell therapy space. We have first and foremost an innovative portfolio. We have leading edge cell therapy assets, 3 novel platform technologies that I'll introduce you to in a minute. We've already demonstrated early clinical success with 2 of those assets in our phase 1A clinical trials. And that really puts us in a great place for value realization opportunities and really being able to track the interest of potential partners and collaborators. The team has the experience and expertise to be able to develop these novel types of oncologic therapies. And we have multiple catalysts that we were able to achieve in 2023, and we've set ourselves for the next 12 to 18 months through 24 and into early 2025. So let me take you into this in a bit more detail, and I'll start by actually talking about our portfolio. So our portfolio is built around these 3 platform technologies. CHM 1101 is the chlorotoxin CAR T that the company was founded on, and it's been studied in a phase 1A trial focused on recurrent glioblastoma patients. And I'll highlight to you shortly some of the positive preliminary data that we've already seen with that asset. CHM 2101 is our CDH17 CAR T cell therapy. This again is first in class, and we were really pleased at the end of last year to receive FDA IND clearance, which allows us to take this asset now into clinic in 2024 in a phase 1A trial where we'll be studying patients with colorectal cancer, gastric cancer, and neuroendocrine tumors. And then the third platform technology in our portfolio is CHM 0201. This is an allogeneic NK cell platform. This has already been studied in a phase 1A clinical trial, and we presented positive results of that trial in 2022. Today, there's 2 ongoing phase 1B trials using CHM 0201, and it's also the backbone of our new next generation technologies. So let me start by talking about CHM 1101. For those of you that have been following the company, you'll know it well. You see highlighted here our phase 1A dose escalation trial that we've read out the results for, and the phase 1B trial. And just as, I'll take a moment to go through the entire pipeline here, you see our core NK or our CHM 0201 assets and their development plan, and the 2101 development plan. Bringing all this together for the company gives us the 3 novel technologies, 4 phase 1 clinical trials ongoing across 5 different disease areas with high unmet medical needs. And today we've treated over 30 patients across all of our clinical programs. So CHM 1101, for those of you that are familiar with us or have been following us for a while, you'll know this asset well. CHM 1101 is a chlorotoxin CAR T. In the preclinical setting, we actually saw very good promise, enhanced recognition and binding, much better than what we see with other GBM targets like IL-13, EGFR, or HER2. And that's translated incredibly well as we moved it into clinic. So in the phase 1A clinical results we presented last fall, they were very positive, and I'll take you into a little bit more depth on those in a minute. Those results have actually led to clinical advancement, taking us from the phase 1A program now into a phase 1B program where we plan to expand and be able to confirm the signal we're seeing to set us up for a registration trial. The asset has robust IP, patents granted in many major markets through to 2036. And we've actually also been able to now generate new preclinical data to be able to expand into novel tumor sites, metastatic melanoma, ovarian cancer, and pancreatic cancer, and have ongoing business development engagement with potential collaborators and partners on this asset. So the clinical trial, phase 1A clinical trial that we presented data on late last fall, was patients that were treated at the City of Hope program. There were 11 patients that we presented data on. And on the right, what you see is really what you would expect to see for most GBM sort of studies or patient demographics, nothing really of note. On the left, what you see is the one area that is actually quite different from other studies that are done in this space. What we saw when we were actually able to look at the data in depth was that the patients that were receiving the therapy, CHM 1101, were very heavily pre-treated. And so you can see the majority of the patients were actually treated in 4th or 5th line. Now, for those of you that are familiar with glioblastoma, you know this is an incredibly deadly disease. And unfortunately, when patients are actually in 2nd line, survival expectations for them are only about 7 months. So as a patient moves to 4th and 5th line therapy, they're very challenging to treat. So this is one a bit unusual demographic in the patients that we were treating. And you'll see how this is informing us as we go forward into our phase 1B trial. Regardless, with that demographic, we were still able to show what we felt was incredibly promising preliminary data. Across the 11 patients treated, we actually achieved a 55% disease control rate, and that is compared to analogs of about 20 to 40% for patients that were treated in 2nd line. From a survival expectation perspective, the patients that achieved disease control showed about 10 months survival. And we've actually had 2 patients that have achieved more than 14 months survival, with one of those patients alive in an ongoing follow-up. From a safety perspective, and really that was the objective of the trial, we came out with a generally well-tolerated drug, no dose-limiting toxicities, or no challenging side effects to manage. So very promising as we move forward. So with that, we've actually been able to move into the phase 1B clinical trial and acknowledge that we want to move forward to the dose expansion, part of the trial, as we've seen this positive signal. What we are doing is we're integrating the lessons that we learned in the phase 1A clinical trial as we advance our development. And very notably, you'll note that on our patient population, we're really looking to focus on an earlier line patient population, 2nd line recurrent or progressive glioblastoma patients. This will set us up much better to be able to move forward to a registration trial with analogs that actually will be relatable. So let me move on from there to our second platform technology, CHM 2101, and this is advancing to the clinic in 2024. The FDA gave us IND clearance in late 2023, and we'll be looking to open this program in mid of 2024 at major US academic institutions. This particular asset came to us from the University of Pennsylvania after they'd been working on optimizing it for more than a decade, and it has shown broad applicability in the preclinical setting to gastrointestinal tumors. That work was highlighted here in the Nature Cancer publication in 2022, where we saw across 7 different types of cancer, complete eradication of all of the tumor cells with absolutely no relapse. So a lot of excitement about being able to get this asset into clinic. This is the clinical trial design highlighted here. And you see sort of the objective, very typical objectives for a phase 1A clinical trial. First, to start with looking at safety, and then really to set ourselves up with the recommended phase 2 dose to be able to move towards a registration trial. We'll be looking at 3 different tumor types at the same time: colorectal cancer, neuroendocrine tumors, and gastric cancer, and initially exploring 3 different dose levels. Once we're able to look at that data, we'll move forward into tumor-specific confirmation and expansion cohorts. So lots of excitement as we open up this clinical trial this year and look at the early data, preliminary data later on this year. The last platform technology for Chimeric is our NK cell platform. Now, this is a little bit different as it's an off-the-shelf platform. So we use healthy donor cells and we engineer them to be able to make them more effective against different types of cancer. And this has broad applicability across multiple different disease areas. We've already seen promising activity in a phase 1A clinical trial that was presented and published. We saw key markers for NK cell development, safety, persistence, and expansion. And we saw efficacy in solid tumors, but very notably in the blood cancer patient population, with one patient having a complete response now more than 2 years. Based on what we saw in that phase 1A clinical program, we actually decided to develop O201 in 3 ways. One was to look at how we put it in combinations to really boost the efficacy signal. The second was how do we enhance those cells and make a next generation platform that will be even better. And the third was to combine it with our CARs and develop CAR NK products. We've been able to move forward with all 3 of those aims. The clinical combinations you see highlighted here are 2 phase 1B trials. The one on the left is being undertaken at Case Western Reserve University, and it's a combination of our cells, our NK cells, with Bactisertib. This trial is currently on pause due to healthcare or nursing resources challenges that they're having, but we have heard recently that they anticipate that pause will come off very shortly, so we're excited to move forward, be able to move forward with this trial again. The other trial that opened late last year and the first patient was treated in February this year actually has right now a wait list, and so they're certainly getting to the patients and treating them as quickly as they can. This is an IIT at MD Anderson in acute myeloid leukemia, actually combining the CHM O201 cells with the standard of care for those patients, azacitidine and venetoclax. As I mentioned, we're then developing the next generation NK cell platform by armoring it. We're adding a TGF-beta receptor armoring as well as cytokine support to give us that CHM0301 or next generation platform. And then we're combining that with our CARs, for example, our chlorotoxin CAR, to give us an off-the-shelf CAR NK product. And we've already been able to look at preclinical data that suggests that there is increased potency with the CAR NKs in ovarian and pancreatic cancer. So now let me turn to talk a little bit about value realization. And really, as we move forward in the development of our assets, how do we attract partners, collaborators, big pharma value realization? I've spent many years of my career, or most of my career, sitting on that side of the table, the big pharma side of the table, and have been very fortunate to be part of many big M&A activities. There are 4 things really that we believe are critical in the cell therapy space to be able to attract big pharma. One is to have innovative technologies. The second is to have portfolio synergies for big companies. The third is now demonstrated clinical success. And the fourth is experience and expertise of the development team. And I'll take you through those in a little bit more detail as well. Innovative technologies provide more appeal to big pharma. So if you think about it, and you're developing assets like a CD19 cell therapy or a BCMA or a Claudin 18.2 asset, what you see here is what already exists out there. So CD19, for example, there's already 5 of those approved in the market, and there are more than 260 in development. Similar, but you can see with the BCMA and the Claudin 18.2, high numbers of these assets in development and approved. For Chimeric, and you see our assets highlighted on the right here, our CDH17 and our chlorotoxin assets are both very novel. There are no FDA approvals for assets using these targets, and there are only a limited number of these assets actually in development today. So really giving Big Pharma something innovative and something novel provides appeal. So that's the first step. The second step is actually thinking about what do they already have? And so what you see here listed is a number of the big pharma companies that are actively involved in the cell therapy space. Kite, BMS, Novartis, Janssen, and Astra. And you can see very clearly that all of those companies already have CD19 and BCMA-directed cell therapies. So it's not very likely that they're going to go out looking for new ones. Again, on the right-hand side, you see chimeric assets. Our CDH17 and our chlorotoxin CAR-Ts are novel to them. So this gives them a synergistic and incremental opportunity to grow their commercialization portfolio. The next thing really important when we think about value realization is being able to provide clinically de-risked assets. And so really getting to the place where you are in a phase 1B or moving into a phase 1B or a phase 2 clinical program so that people can actually say the program has been into clinic and we know what to expect. And you can see highlighted here a number of the M&A activities that have occurred over the course of the last 6 months and really focus on the fact that all of them have been able to show clinically de-risked programs, phase 1B and phase 2. Happily, that is really where our programs are sitting now. We've advanced many of them to phase 1B and really hope to be able to advance the last 2101 program through phase 1A quickly to phase 1B. And then finally, equally important to both Chimeric's development as well as to value realization is the team, experience and expertise in this space. This is a very novel and very unique type of development in oncology. The team that we've put together here, although small, has an incredible amount of experience and expertise working for many of the leading cell therapy companies and proven experience and expertise as we've actually been able to develop and commercialize 4 of the 6 approved CAR T cell therapies to date. We're very fortunate that we actually have an incredible scientific advisory board from some of the top institutions in the United States that provide us great guidance and support as we move forward in the development of our assets. So in 2023, we were pleased to meet all of our key clinical milestones, and you see them highlighted on the left here. And we've set ourselves up with ambitious clinical milestones that we are looking to achieve in 2024. For CHM 2101, site initiation, first patient treated, and preliminary dose escalation data. For 1101, moving into that important expansion cohort with the lessons we've learned from our phase 1A program and looking at the early data from that as well. The Advent AML trial, we were looking to have that first patient treated, and we've already achieved that. We'll be looking to have the initial dose escalation cohort complete and then move into looking at that data later this year as well. So lots of clinical catalysts to look forward to over the course of the next 12 months. With that, I'll just summarize a little bit that Chimeric is really focused our mission and our objectives to bringing the promise of cell therapy to life for more patients. We're doing that through the innovation in our pipeline and portfolio. We've already seen early clinical promise. We have near-term value catalysts set up across the next 12 to 18 months, and a team that has the proven experience and expertise to be able to deliver. So with that, I thank you very much for your time and attention. Matt, I welcome any questions and certainly invite you to reach out through email or through our social channels.
Thank you very much, Jen. Once again, if anyone has a question, please feel free to type it in using the Q&A panel within Zoom. The first question I do have, Jen, is regarding the 2101 program. The study overview has the primary completion estimated at June 2026 for phases 1 and 2. This would indicate that the company is planning on rolling phase 1 straight into phase 2. So pending data, is it a possibility that to apply for accelerated approval for all 3 indications upon this completion?
So simple answer is yes, it is a possibility. As I'm sure everybody is well aware, there are a number of milestones that we have to hit as we go forward to be able to do so. But as you can see, and I think actually highlighted in the question, Matt, is that the study was designed to allow us to develop seamlessly and move from that phase 1A to phase 1B to phase 2 without having to stop and start new clinical programs every time, so that we really can get to the place where we can actually file for registration as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Jen. The next question is, are the 2 NK combo trials treating the same blood cancers?
Great question, Matt. So the clinical trial, or the NK combination trial at Case Western, is actually treating patients with colorectal cancer as well as with acute myeloid leukemia. The clinical trial that is at MD Anderson is only treating patients with acute myeloid leukemia. So again, short answer is yes, they are both treating acute myeloid leukemia patients. Slightly different patient populations. In the focus at MD Anderson is on newly diagnosed acute myeloid leukemia patients, and the focus at Case Western is actually on patients that have relapsed from other therapies.
Thank you. The next question is, has 1301 moved on to in vivo?
1301 has not yet moved on to in vivo. We anticipate that we'll be doing that shortly during the course of this year.
Thank you. The next question is, there's been a bit of M&A activity around the sector in probably the last sort of 6 months especially. Can you just provide a little bit of colour on that from your perspective?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's a promising signal, is that we're starting to see pickup in M&A activity again, and very much so in the cell therapy space. I think that obviously there has been an approval of a cell therapy this year in solid tumors, which has actually also livened up the space again. And I think what we're starting to see, and what we have seen over the course of the last 6 months, is some new entrants from big pharma. So very notably, what we saw was big acquisition by AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca historically had not been part of the cell therapy landscape or space, and they came in with some very big acquisitions and have really started engaging in this space. So I think that, it's a very promising signal for what we're hoping to see as we go forward now in 24.
And another question, with cell therapy, manufacturing is often a challenge. Can you just sort of speak to how well you've set up Chimeric to address that issue?
Yes, that is a very, very true statement. So one of the things that stops many cell therapy companies in their tracks is manufacturing, whether it's manufacturing of drug product or manufacturing of viral vector. I think, Matt, that is one of the things that really the benefit of an experienced team comes into play. And so certainly with my team, we are in a very strong position, both for manufacturing of vector and of drug product. And I think a lot of this comes from the fact that we have, faced these problems before in our previous lives, and have really taken those learnings and been able to say, okay, what do we need to do when? How early do we need to do it? How do we set it up so that we really can develop our manufacturing and our vector at the same pace as we're developing our clinical programs, so that they actually are being able to continue to support and run seamlessly together.
Very good. Thanks for your time today, Jen. We'll leave it there, but that was very comprehensive. And again, feel free, anyone in the audience, please reach out if there's any further questions. But thanks again for the presentation.
Thanks so much for everybody's time. Thanks, Matt.
Next up in about 15 minutes, we'll have Pharmost as part of the NWR Virtual Healthcare Conference. So we look forward to seeing everyone then. Thank you.